Okay, well, greetings from the glorious Colorado Rocky Mountains in a location that's undisclosed because it's so awesome. Actually, it's not that nice. Don't come here, stay where you are. Right, so today we're going to talk about hill running. There's two sections, normal hill running and then trail hill running. We'll do trail hill running secondly. It's a separate discussion. Don't get confused between the two. And then here's the big disclaimer. I will not at any point am I telling you to leave your heel on the ground when you're running up a hill. You need to do the things and make sure that you have access to that and are familiar and comfortable with whole foot running before you try and run up a hill using your whole foot. If you take a shortcut, if you get ahead of yourself, and generally speaking, people that are 4-foot runners or have poor uphill running or quad dominant uphill running techniques are ahead of themselves in the first place. So I'm specifically talking to you, okay? Don't take the shortcuts, you're gonna get hurt. Right, so it works something like this. How you run a hill depends on two variables, probably the gradient and the speed that you're running at. So we're practicing hip extension based gait. That's what this channel is kind of all about. You're using your whole foot, you straighten your leg when your knee is behind your hip, and you've got this on the flat, and that's amazing. And now you come to a hill. What gives is, depending on the speed that you're running, remember basically as you run faster and faster, you'll tend to get up more sort of on your toes. Certainly if you're sprinting, you run on your 4-foot, okay? But Faith Kipyegon can run the world record for a mile using a whole foot. So depending on who you are and your circumstances and your Achilles and your parents and all of these things depends quite a lot, right? So you come up to a hill, and the first thing to realize is your pace is going to slow down, and be okay with that. A lot of people try and run hills too hard and then slow down dramatically the second half. Sort of make sure when you're running the hill, say, I'm going to back off and be within myself a little bit. Your heart rate and your effort will naturally go up. You don't have to try and make it harder than it is. If it's a short hill and it's a race, yep, you might want to sort of punch through and sort of raise your heart rate and your VO2 max and recover on the downhill down. But if it's anything longer than 3 or 4 minutes, and depending on how far your race is, your run is, don't let your heart rate probably go up more than 10 or 15%. You could pay for it later, right? So we're running up a hill. What do we do? One is sort of the steeper the hill, the more important it is to try and still keep your foot underneath your hip. Okay, don't try and step forward and put your foot forward on the hill. Try and almost feel like you're almost running on the spot, and this will make more and more sense to you the steeper the hill is. So on a really steep hill, you'll totally get, oh, it's really easy to run on the spot, but generally speaking, you're trying to shorten your stride up at the front. How long your stride is out the back kind of depends on how flexible your ankle and your Achilles are, which is again, trying to leave your heel on the ground running up a hill, you're going to overload those tendons. So don't try, don't force. So we're coming up to the hill. Probably our cadence is going to increase a little bit, and we're going to feel more like we're running on the spot, and we're not going to let our heart rate come up, and we're going to make sure our shoulders are relaxed and our breathing is really good. Okay. In terms of leaning forward, you don't have to lean forward on the hill. You can still keep your pretty upright stance, okay? As you run faster, you're going to find that you get to a point where you can't run whole foot, or your heels just lift off the ground and you go into your 4-foot. And that's kind of okay. You're now on your anterior chain. We use our anterior chain for sprinting. We use it for, these are descriptive terms, please. Let's not get too caught up in the details. But we use anterior chain for sprinting, for fast running, for accelerating. So it's okay to sort of, if the hill is pretty steep and given how fast you're running, to sort of run it on your anterior chain. Especially if you're competent and fast runner, you've been doing a lot of fast running and accelerations, it shouldn't be too big a deal. If you're running the Comrades Marathon, I don't suggest you run up the hills on your anterior chain. I think you seriously work on your ankle and Achilles flexibility if you have long, significant climbs. Relaxing and using your whole foot is probably a better way to run long gradual hills and long runs and ultra marathons. Okay, so pretty much that's kind of it. Okay, we're staying upright. Try and get a sense that your feet are landing underneath your hip. Your cadence might drift up a little bit. Make sure you're relaxed. Don't let your heart rate go up too high. And if you can, just sort of straighten your legs through your whole foot. If you're getting up into your 4-foot, that's kind of okay. and really make sure as you crest the hill that you sort of relax and you take the tension out and you let your breathing settle down. Not often a great idea on a long hill to take too much nutrition on board because your heart rate goes up. Really good idea as you crest over on the downhill when your heart rate drops to recover. Make sure that you're back on track with your nutrition. Okay, downhills are hard. I think because of treadmills and most people do hill repeats, people are actually really okay at running up hills. Cyclists, because of your quads and you used to sort of generating power with your knee and ankle in front of your hips, you can often find cyclists are really good hill runners. Downhills are a whole nother story, okay? So we require massive hip extension, and you really want to shift your hips forward when you run downhill. Now there's almost two modes of running downhill. Either you want to shift your hips forward, so don't try and, you're sort of leaning forward because you're kind of like matching the hill, but what you want to do is really get your hips forward on a downhill. And this takes practice, and also you can speed up more than you're sort of comfortable with or you like. So you might find that, running downhill on a moderately steep hill, like let's say a 4% gradient downhill, you're running way faster than you ever train at, or way past your comfort zone, and you can start doing a lot of muscle damage. So be mindful of that in a marathon. Like let's say Boston, you run those hills too hard or not skillfully enough, and you're going to pay. Okay, so if you're racing Boston, I really strongly urge you to practice downhill running. One of the things that we do on this channel is you can put a tire and run the tire down the hill, and what that does is it really helps you have a positive drive, because you find that you actually press, you're not running down the hill braking, you're actually driving down the hill, and also you can relax your hips into the rope, and you can learn very quickly a really cool downhill running technique. Downhill is definitely whole foot. Very few people are running downhill on forefoot. If you are, you're a sort of a very significant forefoot runner. Okay, and so yeah, and if you're a forefoot runner and you want to run downhill, you might find that that's really where you get into trouble. Okay, so anyway, really know how to use your hips, relax your shoulders, relax your breathing, practice it's a skill, and as soon as you feel it's too fast or you're losing coordination, slow it down, and then basically look after yourself down the hill. So you've either got like let go the brakes mode, but then you need to be skillful and practice at it, or you've got like, whoa, I'm going to slow down and I'm going to look after myself. So as the hill gets too steep, at some point you'll realize I cannot run this anymore, and then I need to like sort of just be careful and just look after yourself gently down the hill and be patient and play the long game and realize that saving your legs is a smart idea. Okay, and then that sort of comes into trail running. Okay, so trail running, often the hills can get really steep, and so depends on your ankle flexibility and your Achilles range of motion how steep you can run still using your whole foot. But it's very common that your heels will lift off the ground and you'll kind of be on your anterior chain. Very importantly, when you're running trail, get your feet underneath you, don't take a step ahead of you, don't try and step up the hill, keep pressing the ground underneath your hips. Okay, you can practice this in gyms. They've got these step machines, you can practice it on there, because basically if you push your hip, if you keep your foot low, you'll hit the step in front of you. So it really encourages you to step behind you and not get your ankle ahead of your knee. Okay, so you might find that your calves take a lot of strain because you're running up a 4 foot up a hill and you need to do something. So it's kind of common. Let me come a little closer. It's kind of common for people to flay their feet out. The problem with that is that your ankles will dorsiflex, will bend this way much more if the tibia is rotating in. So once you rotate that tibia out on your knee, you're going to lose ankle range of motion and Achilles range of motion. Okay, so what happens then is make sure that you understand. I've got a video on tibial internal rotation, how to mobilize your ankle. You're going to want to do that after trail runs if your legs are flicked out to the side, or probably when you get off that hill, probably run a little bit pigeon toe and see if you can't relax your ankles and your knees, because you can really hurt your knees and your ankles if you get locked in an externally rotated pattern and you're running big distances. But again, foot underneath your hip. What else? Some people might be able to pigeon toe up a hill. It's not something that I've worked with that much, or I can encourage that. I can say, hang on, look at my face in the sun, that's going to work for you. Okay. Downhill's kind of the same. Okay, it's highly skillful to run fast downhills. You got to practice, you got to let go the brakes, you got to basically fly. You use your upper body backwards to create a braking sensation, and you just let your legs go. Really good idea to be able to swing a flow rope backwards if you want to practice the backward sort of brakes or your air brakes when you run down the hill. But throw your hands up if you're running that fast. It also helps a little bit with balance. You've got to be really agile, you've got to have quick feet, and realize that you're running a risk of falling. Like if you practice running fast down steep hills and letting go, you can have more muscle damage than you would like. So in other words, you can have fun on 1 or 2 hills and then almost not finish the race. So it's something you really need to practice with and be familiar with. And 2 is you're running a risk of falling or spraining your ankle. And people that run fast down hills do often sprain their ankles, and you can get sort of injured. So like at my age and just where I'm in life, like if it's really safe or a really nice open patch, I'll let go. Otherwise, I just look after myself on the way down. Okay. You know, when you're young, or maybe if you refuse to acknowledge that you're slightly older or more mature, I don't know. Just figure it out for yourself. But yeah, people do get hurt. You can sprain your ankle, and some people just don't have the skill for it. It's like not everyone can be a Formula One driver. So the precision that you need, the agility, the quick reactions that you need, it's just not in my makeup. You know, I kind of think maybe when I was young I had it, and if I learned that skill when I was young and kept it, it would be okay. But for me, it's like, yeah, I'm good. So be careful on the downhills. You know, stay within your comfort zone, generally speaking, and live to fight another day. And slowly your skill and your agility and your confidence and competence would increase. But it's kind of like how I approach skiing or snowboarding. Like, it's not worth it to fall and break bones at this stage of my life. So I just don't put myself at risk, and I let the speed and agility and competence slowly come towards me. And yeah, year on year, I've just got better and better. And, you know, certainly my average speed is increasing, but it's always within my comfort zone. That's kind of my recommendation for most of you. Okay, when it comes to poles, oh my word, this is hard. I'm not a pole expert, so just be mindful of that. You kind of want to pull the pole back with your shoulder blade. Okay, don't get handsy with your pole. Be careful of bending forward at the waist with a pole. You kind of want to be more upright again, feet underneath you probably, and then more use your shoulders. You can practice this on the sensation on an elliptical. When you're on an elliptical, don't pull, push. Okay, and you'll find it's way more upright. It's way kind of on your hips, and you can sort of practice your hip forward posture. With the poles, it's push, shoulder blade. Try and really use your posterior oblique sling, and it's down. Okay, so you're going sort of press, shoulder blade down, and you got to try and, I don't know, there's a wrist action in there. I've never run with poles, so just be mindful of that. But you know, what we do want is don't lean forwards, don't start resting on the poles, and for sure understand that, like in running, this almost sort of the sensation of an uppercut. Push the poles, pull back with your shoulder blade, with your back. Okay, don't go too armsy, like handsy. You know, keep that movement central. So it's push, something along those lines. I don't know, maybe I'll have a look at some pole videos and figure it out. Okay, that's rather a long video, but it is a glorious backdrop. I hope the quality's nice. And let me know your thoughts, and we can refine further if you have problems that I've left out of this video, or specific questions on the hill running video. But there's not that much that you need to do different. You probably just need to practice and know what to focus on.